Good morning, boys and girls. The world keeps turning and it's still gorgeous out there. Hope you're doing okay. Today, I'd like to mention a book that I really haven't mentioned for the public before, but I think it could work for some people if they're serious. And the book is called Instant Zen. And it's the teachings of a Zen master named Foyan, and it's translated by Thomas Clary. And there's several good things about it, not the least of which is available on audio, which and it's a good job. The guy did a good job of the reading. So Instant Zen by just look it up under Thomas Clary. And then there's another chapter of the Avatamsaka, the flower ornament scripture, that's available on YouTube and Spotify. And I also strongly recommend this. This is called the 10 Abodes, and it goes step by step through 10 stages of the development of a bodhisattva, or a serious student in Buddhism, but it applies. It's not just Buddhism. So I recommend that as well. All right, questions.
Yeah, so today my first question is gonna be from the book Avatamsaka, Eulogies in the Tushita Palace.
Okay.
This one,
Which book is that off it? Just which book is that?
this is Eulogies in the Tushita Palace.
I was wondering what number book it was.
Oh, that is. Let me see, 528. That is it's book 24.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Unfortunately, I don't have that book with me right now, but let's just see what we can do.
yeah, I'll read up the thing, and then I'll
Okay.
ask the question. Yeah. So
Slowly and clearly for the closed captions.
So it says, then Constellation Banner, empowered by the Buddha, looked over the 10 directions and said in verse, the realizer of thusness, without dwelling anywhere, abides in all lands, going to all lands, seen in all places. Buddha manifests all bodies, according to sentient beings' minds, attaining the way, teaching the truth, and finally passing utterly away. The Buddhas are inconceivable. Who can conceive of the Buddhas? Who can see the truly awake? Who can manifest the Supreme? All things are thus, and so are the states of the Buddhas. There is not a single thing in thusness that has birth or death. Sentient beings erroneously discriminate. This is Buddha, this is the world. For one realizing the true nature of things, there is no Buddha and no world. The realizer of thusness appears before all, causing sentient beings to believe and rejoice. But the essence of Buddha is ungraspable, and they are not seeing anything either. If one can in the world depart from all attachments, with unimpeded mind joyful, one will awaken to the truth. That manifested by spiritual power is what is called Buddha. Though one search in all times, present, past, present, or future, it has no existence at all. If one can know in this way, the mind and all things, one will know and see all, and soon become enlightened. In words are expressed the powers of Buddhas, but true enlightenment transcends words, though it be provisionally explained by words. Yeah, this was the reading.
Well, that covers so much territory. And by the way, that's a very good, if you're at this level, that's the level of where the Zenists in particular excel. And in particular, again, I'd like to draw people's attention to Foyan, Instant Zen, because they cover a lot of the same ground. Okay, questions.
Yeah, so in this one, in this they say like exactly like how they say in Zen, if one can in the world depart from all attachments, with unimpeded mind joyful, one will awaken to the truth. So it's like they already are assuming that people have the ability to depart from all attachments.
Well, no, they're not assuming anything. But what comes to mind is someone who's in a beautiful, warm Caribbean ocean, and they can swim above water, they can swim underwater, they can even fly above the water. But all they're doing is they're hanging on to one little piece of wood, right? A little
Mm-hmm.
piece of raft. And
Mm-hmm.
because they can't let go of that, they don't realize their abilities to be completely free in the ocean, above the ocean, and so on and so forth. So it's the clinging to the small, or the really the stuff that doesn't matter, that
Mm-hmm.
prevents people from seeing the truth of their true nature,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
their true nature is oceanic. And so, yeah, this is what they in Zen they cover this quite a bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in order to taste the cosmos, you have to let go of your little room in your little house and your little car, your little life.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what that is pointing to. Now, doing it with words won't do it, right? Because it's beyond conception. It's beyond the mind,
Yeah.
beyond the conceptual mind, beyond thought, and beyond words. And so, the most that the teachers can do is point towards it and
Mm-hmm.
say what's preventing people, hanging on to their little ego, especially, and pride and things like that. Just you can't grok it that way. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just counseling to let go of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm not saying it's easy. No one says it's easy. I mean, it can be easy for some people sometime, but usually it's quite a bit of work because you have to undo all these things you've learned. You're conditioned and attached to all kinds of opinions and ideas and definitions and all this other stuff, and you just have to be free of those thoughts. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
thoughts will be there, but you don't have to pay any attention to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm.
It's very
Okay.
similar to the Taoist approach, also.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Got it.
And in the Christian tradition, people love something else so much. Say, for
Mm-hmm.
example, Christ or God or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They love that so much, they're willing to give up everything else
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of God or truth or Jesus or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sets them free.
Mm-hmm.
And in the mystical tradition, then all those things start to look very differently afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. I can then move on to the next question I had.
All right. Or follow up. Oh, yeah, whatever. Go ahead.
Like the actionable thing for me from that is just basically keep doing the stuff that I am doing. Is like whenever I feel attachments or emotions arising, I try to step back and just like watch or observe everything uh,
That's a good.
as
That's a good. That's a good foundation.
as a whole.
But then there is a place for study. Okay, there's three places where you learn. One is
Mm-hmm.
from other people, two is from books, and third is from your own experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you
Yeah.
just be alert and aware, and you'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some night when you're about to fall asleep, you'll glimpse something, or when you're waking up, maybe something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just prepare the ground. That's all you need to do,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and let go of any preconceived ideas,
Yeah.
because those will block you for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh, the next question I have is from the same book, but so I'll read it out. But it seems like here also they are stressing too much on knowing before even starting.
Well, you have to have some idea where you're headed, but if you read an entire long passage like that,
Mm-hmm.
that's meant to be chanted, and it contained that one passage you read had probably 20 different pieces of 20 different fingers pointing
Yeah.
to different
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
go to a shorter passage
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. This one is from Teachings of Zen. It's a short one.
All right.
The title is Waking Up, and it
Teachings
says,
of Zen, huh?
yeah,
Thomas Clary, translator.
yeah, Thomas Clary.
All right.
It says, for waking up, when you know illusion, you become unattached without exercising any technique. When you detach,
Correct.
when you detach from illusion, you wake up without going through any process.
True.
Shakyamuni Buddha opened up 1,000 gates and 10,000 doors all at once. Someone who is spiritually sharp will immediately act on that. As for those who shilly shally, you and I are going in different directions.
Right. So what's the question?
So here also, like they are saying that when you know already, you become unattached.
Whoa, wait a minute. Now, so we just read the first sentence.
Hmm.
Read it out loud.
When you know illusion, you become unattached.
Okay. Now, do you know illusion?
I
I
mean,
mean, have you sat and contemplated the emptiness of all phenomenon, the compounded nature of all phenomenon, the lack of essence of all phenomenon, the the unreality of the past and of the future, at least, right? Have you contemplated those deeply?
so
Now, that's what they mean by it's illusion. So
okay.
you've got a whole lifetime of like, I mean, when you were a kid, it didn't matter whether it was illusion or not. It was all one big, uh, undifferentiated experience. But now that you're an adult, you've got an idea of what reality is, and the extent to which you're able to grasp the fact that nothing has an inherent existence. Nothing lasts for any length of time. That even time and space, are relative, and not just relative. They're what's the word for it? They're epiphenomenon of the human mind. And so when you start to truly understand that, then you understand illusion. But that's not easy to do. I mean, just trying to think of a world without time, that's very difficult for the human to do. Right. But Einstein had to do it, but he did it 100 years ago. And that was in the West. And he didn't use any meditation. Well, he probably did. He probably meditated and contemplated a lot more than your average person. But these are scientific findings, so you have to understand them deeply, grok them all the way. And then illusion is illusion. But if you just kind of take a half-baked thing, well, that's kind of what they say, they say it's dreamlike, and they say it's not real, it's illusory. But okay, I got it. That's not getting it. Getting it is investing yourself deeply in truly understanding it and all of the ramifications, not just for you in particular, but also for the world. So that's the first sentence. What's the second sentence?
Without exercising any technique.
So you don't need any technique. You just need to understand it. However, I mean, there's no magic technique like you put on a robe, you light a stick of incense, and you bow 3 times to the Buddha and turn around and in circles 4 times. There's no technique like that. Some people like to act like there is, like, you have to sit in a lotus position, or you have to, meditation means sitting there and facing the wall, or getting dressed up like a medieval Japanese priest or something. That has nothing to do with this. There's no technique like that, and there's no dogma either. It's deep understanding of the nature of reality. And the huge advantage we have here in the modern world is that not only do we have the scientific advances, but you also have an AI right there where you can ask questions about this. And the AI, I ask every time a new AI pops up, I ask them, and they kind of agree that consciousness is most likely the basis. Of course they do. And information. So So understanding what that could possibly mean, for example, with information, can you imagine a world without information? Just imagine a world without information. Try it.
I mean, every even yeah, I mean, without information, which is data, and in a material world, data comes automatically. Yeah, I can't.
There is no world without information. Just think about that. So information is what there is information.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and notice the fact that you can't see anything but the surface of the world. You can't see behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think about that and you go, well, wait a minute. I wasn't told the world was information. I was told the world was, either mass and energy, or light and quarks and particles and things like that. I mean, who grew up thinking the world was just information
Mm-hmm.
and energy? But energy is just information too. What is temperature really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very interesting. If you look up scientifically, what is temperature? You'll find that it's a measure of the kinetic energy of particles or something like that. But that's not temperature. That's the movement of particles in a container. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you go deeply into these things that people say, and you say, well, is that true or not true? I mean, I don't know if I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in quarks, and I believe in subatomic particles, and then you have to solve it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's taking yourself seriously, that's taking the world seriously, that's taking Dharma seriously,
Mm-hmm.
spirituality seriously, if you want to call it that.
I think.
So, but there's no technique, right? There's no magic method. That's what that second sentence says.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll like tell honestly. So like so when I
So you have
contemplate.
to be honest. I mean, without honesty, ruthless honesty towards yourself, especially,
Mm-hmm.
but also with everybody else, but especially towards yourself, you'll
Mm-hmm.
not get anywhere.
Yeah. So like when I contemplate and as I think about things, it has become clearer and clearer that things are coming out of nothing, and then I can't find like a source or origin of things, and so with that so with that understanding, life is life becomes what you like more natural until pleasure or pain hits, like pleasure or fear hits. And then, even though knowing that things are like in that way and I can stay detached.
That's an extremely useful observation. So let me see. I'll give you a word, and you can see decide if it applies or not. But one could be going along just fine, just dealing with the cosmos, and we'll talk about things just coming out from nowhere and then where they go afterwards. But your observation is extremely powerful because in the face of pain or pleasure, there's a contraction of the consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
focus on that pain or that pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
With the pain, you focus on getting rid of it. With the pleasure, you focus on getting more of it.
Mm-hmm.
Attraction and aversion. You're
Mm-hmm.
exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So
So.
those are obstacles for, or not, there's obstacles. Those are obstacles in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and those are maybe the two toughest obstacles
Mm-hmm.
because pain, you know, nobody likes pain and everybody likes pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So good. So does that word contraction, does that seem to fit?
Yeah, because
You
it feels like that when I'm hit with pleasure or wanting to avoid pain, I feel that even in spite of knowing how things are, I'm still compelled to act in a way to seek more pleasure and avoid pain.
Another one, by the way, just while we're talking about it, because there's this, people that listen in. Children are another one of those things. Remember the Sufi story about I forget the
Um,
game that Mulla was playing with his wife. Do you remember that story?
I think I don't remember it. I
The
might have.
Mullah and his wife were playing a game, where let's see, what was it? I'm going to butcher it, so I don't want to butcher it. But essentially, they were supposed to remember. They were doing basically Sufi recollection, remembrance, a Sufi practice, right?
Oh, I found the story. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, read
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it says Mulla Nasrudin and his wife
Okay,
were.
wait a minute. Read the title first.
Oh, it doesn't say the title. It says Nasrudin
Okay, go ahead
Tales.
then.
Yeah, it says Mulla Nasrudin and his wife were both very competitive, and one time they decided to play the remember game. After several months of playing, Nasrudin decided to go on a long trip and return with a gift in hopes that his wife would forget to say remember when she accepted the gift. A year later, he came home with the gift, showed that his amazing patience and planning would pay off. When his wife answered the door, she, holding a small baby in her hands, said, "Here is your new son." Nasuddin was caught so off guard that he immediately embraced the baby, prompting his wife to immediately exclaim, "You forgot."
Yeah, so that's okay. That's a very powerful story, right?
Hmm.
But to understand it, you'd have to be, you know, uh, on this path, on this journey,
Hmm.
and have a kid, and then you understand it.
Hmm.
But basically, it's like one of those things. It's so deep in a person
Hmm.
that you forget everything, right?
Hmm. And it's not like I forget. Like I know, but it just feels like compulsion to.
Correct. But if your wife hands you a son,
Hmm.
I dare say you might forget for a bit. Actually, I mean, never mind. I mean, it's easy for the audience to misunderstand this. It takes place in a context, and it's a way of illustrating something very important, I think.
Hmm.
But so okay, so that's a hypothetical right now, right? You don't have any kids.
Yeah, yeah, I don't.
Okay, so now you were saying that things would pop up in the universe from nothing.
Yeah, so like if I look at the source of things, just like how I was born and the things that keep happening in my life, they are so like unpredictable and kind of miraculous, that there is.
They're not kind of miraculous. They're miraculous when you really think about something from nothing.
Hmm.
I mean, the universe itself.
Hmm.
Right? If we don't use the word miraculous for that, what do we use the word miraculous for? Or just plants coming out of the ground, or all the things. Okay,
Hmm.
good. So you've got that end of it. Where does it all go?
And the way it came and the same way it disappears.
That's worth contemplating
Hmm.
deeply.
Hmm. I think it's the selfishness that creates this compulsion.
Well, I
Yes.
think it's harder to be selfish when you know where you come from and where you're going.
Hmm.
And it becomes even more difficult when you know what you are truly.
Hmm.
So I mean, don't beat yourself up. You know, generosity is the paramita,
Hmm.
right? One of the
Hmm.
little boats. And so every time you get a chance, you build it a little bit.
Hmm.
The same with patience and effort and discipline and insight or understanding and meditation, contemplation, those things, right? So the point there is that you just build on that. You can build that capacity. And I'm not saying you're more selfish than other people. I doubt you are. I don't think you are. But the thing is that, yeah, because you're an animal,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Look at dogs and monkeys; they'll fight for the last scrap of food, or they'll fight for a chew toy.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that baked in us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by selfishness, I meant like just like my nature of like wanting to have pleasure and avoid pain, which,
I don't think you're alone there, sir.
yeah.
I mean, you can feel alone, but you're not alone. Believe me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's a human universe.
Mm-hmm.
But the times of true pain and true pleasure are actually fairly, they come and go. That's not your whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So you just have to work around it and try and understand it and then get stronger at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to like just discuss is something happened like with me in the last couple of weeks. So I used to get angry a lot in the last like 6 8 months, uh, and what was happening that as I used to get angry, things used to work in my favor. So I stopped thinking about being angry as like a bad thing. So when things will
Who
not,
did you get angry with?
like, just with like people around, or like, yeah, people around, things like that.
Okay.
And
All right.
it used to feel like, oh, I'm like standing up for myself, or like, oh, like, if I behave in this way, then people like do what they are supposed to do, or they do what I want. But recently I had an incident where, because of anger, I made a mistake, and then I like, it affected me deeply because I not like lost something, but it's like I saw the damage it caused, and since then anger has stopped coming up.
Okay, good. See, so you're learning now. Now another thing, because there's people listening or whatever.
Hmm.
Another thing you can do is look at people when they're angry and ask yourself, do they look attractive? Or what do they look like?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
And invariably, what you'll find is that people are hideously ugly when they're angry.
Hmm.
And then you just apply it to yourself. And if nothing else, vanity, keeps you from getting angry because you know how horrible you look. Right?
Yeah.
That's just another trick of the trade. But
Yeah.
yeah, no. So you're learning, right? And you
Yeah.
learn. You can also think about what anger does to your health.
Hmm.
And the another one is what it does to your thinking, because you can't think straight when you're angry.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, as you go along, it'll drop out.
Hmm. I think
You'll
for,
see it's just a very crude and useless tool, really.
yeah.
Very, very rarely. I mean, occasionally it's called for, right?
Yeah.
Jesus in the temple,
Yeah.
where the money lenders are in there, and he has to express his true feelings. So, I mean, there is a very rare occasion when it's indicated. I've seen the Dalai Lama get pretty upset at people, and Idris Shah would also.
Hmm.
So, but those were very. It was basically for willful ignorance, willful, stupidity or something.
Hmm.
Usually based on ignorance, but very, very, very rarely.
Hmm. My anger, I think, was also coming from a lot of pride, because I,
Well, that's the kiss of death right there, man.
yeah,
Don't you agree?
yeah, as I look back, I feel like I started to feel entitled to a lot of things. I used to feel like, oh, like somehow I used to feel self important. So when things will not go my way, or like when people will not behave the way I want, I used to get angry because of that feeling of entitlement. So that pride also has gone away with anger. So like now when I,
You'll get to where if you get angry, you'll just feel horrible about yourself,
hmm,
and you will always, if you get angry, you'll always be conscious while
hmm,
you're angry, and it's almost like you're not angry. You just put it on a display
yeah,
for a functional reason.
hmm,
But if you lose consciousness while you're angry, then that's something that has to be worked on.
yeah, yeah,
I told you that when I studied with the Dalai Lama, we spent like, I don't know, 4 days on Actually, when you include the study, the reading beforehand, and all the other stuff, there's more than that on patience, which by which they mean forbearance, which is by which they mean anger is a horrible poison. You know,
Yeah.
you think you're sticking an arrow in somebody else's eye, but you're really sticking it in your own eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it ends up not being worth it unless there's a really good reason for it.
Yeah.
And you're conscious the whole time. And that occurs very rarely, maybe every few years, if that.
Yeah.
Anger's a loser's game.
Yeah. And I also saw that I had to do a few things in the last couple of weeks, which I would not have done before because of too much pride. But I did that, and a couple of times it was an ego hit, but afterwards it became pretty easy. It's like I don't know how to say it, but it feels like I don't feel important, but I also don't feel yeah I don't feel
Don't
important.
worry, don't worry. There's another lesson on the way.
Yeah.
See, this is partly what's meant by the universe is trying to bring you hope.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be set up for you. You'll get tested again
Mm-hmm.
until you've mastered it entirely.
Mm-hmm.
The world provides us with an endless source of lessons in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a world leader once, somebody who's worthy of respect, who said, if I lose control of myself, that shows weakness. And as a leader, what gives me the right to be weak, to show weakness like this?
Mm-hmm.
And that makes some sense, So anger is just a sign of weakness. Again, unless you have people like literally robbing from people in the synagogue or something.
Mm-hmm.
In which
Yeah.
case they willfully know what they're doing is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to listen to anything else. But I wouldn't even recommend that until you're. I wouldn't even recommend that. You play with the master's tools and you cut your hand. Best not to get angry,
Mm-hmm.
but you know that, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
And so now any anger is a sign of weakness on your part.
yeah, for me, anger is now just like something that is uh, that is useless, like unproductive, because
Yeah, makes you ugly and stupid.
yeah, because I'm not able to evaluate options clearly. I'm not able to think clearly. So what's the point of
Right.
being angry? Yeah, I think it's I
So
started.
there's a book. Let me recommend it in case people are interested. It's a book by Shanti Deva, the great Buddhist saint, and he wrote a book called Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. It's a real classic, and I think chapter 7 in that book is just on anger, just on patience.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes through all. How the Tibetan Buddhists will, they have they have logic and arguments for everything, right? And he goes through all of the different reasons why anger is to be avoided like poison. So just for people out there that are inclined to that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
Shantideva, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, I think it's in the middle of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the text that the Dalai Lama used with us.
Mm-hmm. I think it started
All
for
right.
me when I first started dealing with people who were not listening to my logic and rationale. And then I noticed that when I got angry, then they will like listen. So it started from
Well,
there, but then
go ahead.
it started from there like as a useful tool. But then after that, it just started happening more and more often at unwanted situations. Yeah,
And those
those.
were special people too, because if that was a general public,
Hmm.
sooner or later somebody's going to get up and clean your clock with their fists or something, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's, by the way, that's not one of the reasons that the Buddhists give. But okay, you're very aware of it. From now on, it'll be nothing but a sign of weakness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And a sign of falling off your horse
Mm-hmm.
and losing the way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you won't want that at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worried about that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the another page from Teachings of Zen. This one I
Okay.
didn't really get. It was pretty confusing. So it says testing seekers. And it says, I have tested all the Zen seekers in the world with four pivotal sayings. There is life within death, there is death within life, there is permanent death in death, and there is permanent life in life. Now tell me, what do all the Zen seekers in the world use to test me?
Right. So, I mean, he's basically, that's just a challenge, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I just need to
I'm not sure I like his approach. Who is that?
this is Su Hussein, 11th century.
11th century. So let's get the four again. The
There,
first one is
there is life within death.
okay.
There is death within life.
Good.
There is permanent death in death.
Okay.
There is permanent life in life.
Okay. So then now, so he it was basically just a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It'd be interesting to think if a teacher came up and said that to you, what would you say?
Mhm. I would say like
But some of those Zen guys put them under pressure. Go ahead.
I would just say like the for the first two, I can still like understand what they mean, but the second two, the last two, yeah, those ones I have.
Right. Well, that's after awakening, basically.
Okay.
Jesus said exactly the same thing. He said, "My kingdom is not of this world," and something. I don't know. Let me see if I can quote him exactly. It's something about life everlasting. You know, basically it's also Christian doctrine
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
Muslim too. By the way, now that I think about it, but the simplified versions of it, obviously,
Got it.
unless you're talking about the mystics in both traditions,
Got it.
in which case it's identical.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, I think that's pretty much all the questions I had from the books.
What came before that one and what came after that one? I'm curious. In the book,
In the book, so before this, it was like an eyes and feet. It was about if you only understand yourself and not the environment, you have eyes but no feet. If you understand the environment but not yourself, you have feet but no eyes. In either case, there is something on your chest all the time. Since there is something on your chest, uneasiness is always present, and you get stuck along the way. How can you attain peace? A spiritual ancestor said if you cling to it, you lose measure and inevitably fall into a false path. Let it go and be unnatural. Let it go and be natural. Essence neither goes nor stays. This was before on this.
okay, and then what comes after?
After is human sentiment. It says Buddhism does not obey human sentiments. The elders everywhere all open their mouths wide, saying, I understand Zen, I understand Tao, but tell me, do they understand or not? As for those who sit in cesspits for no reason, deceiving spirits and fooling ghosts, even if you killed 1,000 or 10,000 of them and fed them to the dogs, what would be wrong with that?
Okay, so that one fits with the one before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, how I told you I didn't particularly like his approach or whatever.
Yeah.
He's basically he's one of these guys that's basically just spouting off something he knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next passage is about false Zen teachers that
Mm-hmm.
sit in cesspools,
Mm-hmm.
these old baldies, and they receive, ghosts and fool. What is it? Receiving whom?
Deceiving spirits and fooling ghosts.
Yeah, deceiving spirits and fooling ghosts. And then what does he say?
Even if you killed 1,000 or 10,000 of them and fed them to the dogs, what would be wrong with that?
So even if you killed 1,000 or 10,000 of them and fed them to the dogs, what would be wrong with that? He's saying that's what you should do with these teachers. So the book is a warning too, because there's a lot more fake Zen than there is real Zen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really an important thing to know.
Mhm.
And that's been true throughout history.
Mhm.
I mean, it's especially true now, but it's been true throughout history.
Yeah.
And so a fake teacher, yeah, if you fed him to the dogs, that's probably better. The world's better off, right?
Mhm.
We don't need that kind of stuff. And it happens all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I've seen it directly. And so that's what that other thing goes with.
Mhm. Yeah.
That you need to test these teachers,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
you need to be able to discern, which is very, very difficult for the student that's just starting out.
Mhm.
And so it's a very difficult situation, and that's where the sincerity of the heart is really important,
Mhm.
and humility is very important, but in a certain way. Otherwise, you get taken in by one of these guys, these baldies, and these fake baldies, as they called, and then you end up in a real mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got to be careful. You get to teach people get the teachers they deserve,
Mhm.
right? And so if you're not a sincere student and you're not a real student, or you're really lazy, or you don't want to, your heart is not pure, or whatever, you're going to end up with someone like that, and that's worse than nothing.
Mhm. Yeah.
One teacher asked me, he said, "Do you know what it's like to sit in a zendo with a psychopath? Sit meditate with a psychopath?" And it's something really to think about, right?
Mhm.
Because it's easy, because these are opaque organizations usually, right?
Yeah.
And you would just walk into them and you assume, well, the abbot must know the most and he must be the real deal or whatever. But sometimes the abbot is the biggest sociopath,
Yeah.
just like in intelligence agencies or any other agencies. When they become too opaque and they become encrusted, the psychopaths can rise to the top, and they tend to stay there because they're ruthless towards the people underneath them.
Yeah.
So then take that as a warning.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else before we stop?
I think I have one last, like
Good.
it's like more like asking for help, or like getting like some guidance. I'm sure a lot of people have suffered something similar, and I want to like figure out like a better way to deal with it. So like let's
Well,
say,
how personal is it?
I think it's personal kind of, but I'm okay
Why
if
don't you talk about it in the third person then? I don't want any confusion.
okay, okay, yeah, I'll talk about it in the third person. Yeah. So like,
You know a guy who.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's say like I know a guy, and that guy basically is about to like lose something which he feels like he's losing, but he also has this like idea that maybe he can do something about it, like maybe get it back, or like things like that. But he knows he's losing that, and the main fear that is causing him to not let go is this idea that something similar or better will not come along, and because of that idea he is suffering.
So he's motivated by fear, not love.
He is motivated by, so there is attachment too, but attachment are
Eh,
also just emotions.
yeah, but some emotions are okay. So first of all, it sounds like this guy's got a hard lesson to learn,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so you don't know. I mean, maybe the universe is just saying, "Okay, dude, you didn't learn it last time,
Mm-hmm.
so you're going to learn it this time."
Yeah.
You don't know, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I would, get in the way of that. I mean, you see, unless you know everything that's going on,
Mm-hmm.
you're right. This is a human universal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know a woman right now who's being scammed out of her last few pennies and
Mm-hmm.
trying to raise more because she's in love with a scammer,
Mm-hmm.
from another country
Mm-hmm.
that she's never even met.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't want to let go of this guy because for her, at her advanced age, this is her last chance at true love or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a very painful lesson to learn, horribly painful.
Mm-hmm.
And she may not be ready to learn it. She may have to learn the hard way. That's how stubborn people can get when they have unconscious fear.
Mm-hmm.
So bring the fear to get rid of the fear, bring it to consciousness, and clarify and seek counsel. Right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things. Anything's better than getting ripped off in your old age of the last few pennies, dollars you have by
Mm-hmm.
some scammer from God knows where, from Uzbekistan or something,
Yeah.
who's working from a playbook.
Yeah.
And this woman is sure she's in love,
Mm-hmm.
and sure this guy's sincere, but it's obvious to literally 100% of the people around her
Mm-hmm.
that she's being scammed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's speaking now as a psychiatrist, it's very hard to talk people out of delusions that they have there for a reason, right? To
Mm-hmm.
avoid fear or feelings of abandonment or feelings of loneliness and things like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so technically, I mean, what you'd like is to have something to replace it with. I mean, speaking as a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's not usually the way the world works. The world works as a university to teach us what we need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us, including me at times in my life, need to learn the hard way, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you got to do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you never know. So, I wish that guy luck, but sounds like he's motivated by fear, not love. And that's one that the universe will definitely
Mm-hmm.
call someone on.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I can't do much more than that. I mean,
yeah.
it's just the motivations are wrong. And I don't know what the stars have in store.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? Maybe, I don't know is what I'm saying. But at first glance, it looks like a lesson is going to be learned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for that guy, I think probably he's also confused because experiencing attachment and then
Yes.
logically analyzing it, seeing that people come and go, so why is he so attached? And the reason he can only come up with was maybe because he thinks that there's nothing better that could come along, and that's
That's
why.
one reason, but there's bound to be others.
Yeah, there are.
And when emotions get involved, right? See,
Mm-hmm.
we're wired when we fall in love, especially when we're young,
Mm-hmm.
to just lose all perspective
Mm-hmm.
on everything. It's like a psychosis,
Mm-hmm.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, literally, it is. And
Mm-hmm.
people's judgment goes right out the window
Mm-hmm.
when they're, emotionally involved. So
Mm-hmm.
the same thing that's true for anger also is true for overwhelming lust or overwhelming love of a certain kind, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
So if you ever try to take a teenager in love away from her boyfriend, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm talking about. It can't be done
Mm-hmm.
unless, and I'm not saying it should be done necessarily either, unless there's danger involved.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that this life has a way of teaching us the hard
Mm-hmm.
way or the easy way. Sooner or
Yeah.
later we learn.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we
Yeah.
don't, the Indians believe that you come back in a reincarnation and do the whole thing over again and see if you learn it this time. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's a perennial problem.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
And emotion does nothing but cloud judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with, teenagers in love. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
God help us if something wrong with that. That's so pure and idealistic and real and palpable and just like luscious and wonderful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as a teenager, that's not a woman in her 60s who's
Mm-hmm.
giving her last,
Mm-hmm.
dollar to some scammer in the Eastern Europe or North Africa or wherever this guy's from.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Anything
Cool.
else before we stop?
Other than that, no. I mean, so regarding the book, I have started reading it aloud again because my cough has gotten better. Uh,
Oh,
so with
good.
with that, uh,
Good.
yeah.
Cuídate, hombre. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see
Cool.
you sometime.
Cool.
Not tomorrow. I'm
Cool.
sorry.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
See
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Bye.